Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Right now, at this very moment, there is an epic, incredibly high-stakes operation happening inside of you. Literally, you're walking around with a microscopic, highly advanced purification plant that is running 24/7. And it's a good thing it is, because without it, the very biological processes that keep you alive, well, they'd actually poison you from the inside out. So today, we're going to explore the magnificent, absolutely life-saving machinery of your excretory system. Okay, before we get too far, let's clear up a really common misconception right out of the gate. When we talk about excretion, I think a lot of people immediately just think of going to the bathroom to, well, do number two. But in human biology, excretion and defecation are completely different things. Defecation is really just passing out the leftover undigested food that simply traveled through your digestive tube. Excretion, on the other hand, is the removal of chemical wastes that are produced directly by your living cells. So the key takeaway here is that excretion is all about filtering out your internal cellular trash, not just dropping off the food your body couldn't digest. So, how are we going to break this down? Well, here is our roadmap. First, we'll look at the body's toxic waste problem. Then, we'll meet the excretory organs themselves before zooming way inside the mighty kidney. After that, we'll see exactly how urine is made, explore the sheer magic of osmoregulation, and finally, take a look at what happens when this whole system fails. Let's start with this toxic waste problem. Honestly, the best way to think about your body is to imagine it as a bustling, incredibly dense megacity. You've got millions of activities happening every single second just to keep the lights on, right? But just like any big, sprawling city, that massive level of industry naturally produces a massive amount of dangerous trash. Think about it. Every living cell in your body is essentially a tiny little factory. As they metabolize your food, the carbohydrates, fats, and proteins you eat for energy, they inevitably churn out byproducts. We're talking about stuff like carbon dioxide and water vapor, sure, but also excess salts, leftover water-soluble vitamins, and biopigments. Fun fact, those biopigments are actually the breakdown products of dead red blood cells, and they're what give your feces their brown color. But without a doubt, the absolute most dangerous garbage your inner city produces are nitrogenous wastes. Things like ammonia, uric acid, and urea. To really put the stakes of this into perspective, the source material says this: urea is highly poisonous. If allowed to accumulate in the blood to a certain level, it causes death. So yeah, this isn't just taking out the recycling. This is the continuous, rapid removal of lethal toxins. If your body's sanitation department goes on strike for even a little while, the whole city falls. So that begs the question, who exactly is on this life-saving cleanup crew? Who is tasked with keeping your internal city perfectly clean? It's absolutely fascinating how the body divides up this heavy workload. It uses a whole team of accessory organs to handle specific kinds of waste. Your lungs, for example, handle the carbon dioxide by simply exhaling it out. Your skin pitches in by sweating away some water, salt, and even trace amounts of urea. Your liver acts as this massive detox center, converting that highly toxic ammonia we just talked about into slightly less toxic urea. But the primary, undisputed heavy lifters of the entire excretory system, those are your kidneys. They are the ones ultimately tasked with capturing that urea from your blood and throwing it completely out of your body. Since they're the stars of the show, let's zoom in on these master filters and see what's actually going on inside the mighty kidney. You have two of these bean-shaped kidneys. Each one is about 10 centimeters long, tucked protectively right there in your lower back. If you were to slice one open, you'd see a distinct outer dark region, which we call the cortex, and a lighter inner striped region called the medulla. The blood carrying all that toxic urea flows in through the renal artery, gets filtered through those internal structures, and the resulting urine drops right into the pelvis area. From there, it funnels down a long tube called the ureter directly into your bladder. And the sheer volume of work these organs do is just unbelievable. Get this. Do you want to know how many times all the blood in your entire body cycles through these two little bean-shaped organs every single day? 350 to 400 times. It's a relentless, continuous loop of purification happening inside you right this very second. But how exactly do they manage to pull this off? To see that, we have to zoom way, way in to the microscopic structural and functional unit of the kidney. It's called the nephron. If you look closely, it basically looks like a complex little knot of blood vessels sitting inside a tiny cup, which is attached to a long, twisting yellow tube. This little structure right here is where the actual magic of separating the poison from your blood takes place. And the scale of the setup is just mind-blowing. You have roughly 2 million of these microscopic nephrons packed tightly into your 2 kidneys. Think about that. If you were to take all of these twisting, looping little tubules out of your body and lay them end to end, they would stretch for more than 60 kilometers. That is an unbelievable amount of surface area your body hides inside of you, just to ensure every single drop of your blood gets perfectly filtered. Okay, so we've seen the hardware. Let's see how this incredible anatomy translates into action. How exactly do we go from blood plasma to urine? It all kicks off right inside that little cup we mentioned, the Bowmans capsule, which acts kind of like a microscopic, extremely high-pressure coffee filter. Blood enters this knot of capillaries, called the glomerulus, through a pretty wide tube. But the exit tube, the efferent arteriole, is much narrower. Imagine trying to force a massive, rushing river through a tiny little garden hose. It creates massive hydrostatic pressure. This extraordinary force literally squeezes the liquid part of the blood, stuff like water, glucose, salts, and urea, right out through the capillary walls, into the cup, leaving the thicker red blood cells behind. So the production of urine is really a highly coordinated 3-step dance. Step 1 is that intense squeeze we just talked about, ultrafiltration. But here's the catch. That initial squeeze pushes out a lot of really good stuff too, like glucose and loads of water. So we need step 2, which is reabsorption. As this fluid travels down that twisting 60-kilometer tube, your body frantically grabs back all the water and nutrients it actually wants to keep. Finally, we hit step 3, tubular secretion. The cells lining the tubule actively pump any remaining toxins, excess potassium, or foreign chemicals, like, say, penicillin if you happen to be taking antibiotics, directly back into the fluid to be flushed out. So after all that intense, high-pressure squeezing, the selective reabsorbing, and the active secreting, what actually leaves your body at the end of the day? Well, normal human urine is overwhelmingly just water, about 95% of it, in fact. Only 5% is the actual solid waste, things like urea, creatinine, and excess salts. It takes all of that incredibly complex plumbing we just walked through just to safely flush out that toxic 5%. This brings us to a truly fascinating capability of the excretory system. You see, it isn't just a simple trash chute. It's actually a highly precise chemical scale. This process is called osmoregulation. It's a fancy word, but basically it's just how your kidneys regulate the osmotic pressure of your blood. In plain English, it's how your body decides exactly how much water and salt it needs to keep and how much it needs to throw away, to ensure your internal liquid mixture stays perfectly balanced at all times. It's essentially simple math. To maintain perfect equilibrium, if an average adult takes in about 2,500 milliliters of water a day through drinking, eating, and basic cellular respiration, well, they have to lose exactly 2,500 milliliters. Now, you lose some of that constantly through sweat, breathing out vapor, and feces, but your kidneys are the dynamic variable here. They constantly adjust your urine output to perfectly match whatever water is left over, making sure your daily total always balances out perfectly. And I guarantee you've actually experienced this dynamic adjustment yourself. Have you ever noticed why your urine is darker and thicker in the hot summer months? It's because you're losing a massive chunk of your body's water budget to sweat. Your brilliant kidneys instantly realize the body is running low on water. So during step 2, that reabsorption phase, they frantically grab back much more water from the tubules, which results in a smaller, much more concentrated volume of urine. Pretty clever, right? But because this system is so intricately tied to your body's survival chemistry, we have to ask, what happens when this delicate machinery breaks down? Urine is essentially a diagnostic window into your overall health. If the tiny filters in Bowman's capsule get damaged by an infection or kidney stones, red blood cells can actually slip through, a condition called hematuria. If your body has insufficient insulin, like we see in diabetes, excess sugar spills right into the urine, which is known as glycosuria. And in really severe cases, like cholera, massive dehydration can literally stop the kidneys from functioning at all. When that happens, deadly urea builds up rapidly in the blood, causing a fatal condition known as uremia. If both kidneys fail permanently, the only way to prevent that lethal uremia is to rely on modern medicine's best attempt to recreate them, the dialysis machine. It's essentially an artificial kidney. To try and replicate what your natural kidneys do completely silently in the background, a patient has to be hooked up to this massive machine. Blood is manually pulled from their arm, forced through artificial filter tubes, and then returned to the body. It is a grueling, exhausting process that takes up to 12 hours a week, just to survive. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? We've had to engineer massive, complex machines just to try and replicate the life-saving work that two little bean-shaped organs do for you, effortlessly, 400 times a day. Your 60 kilometers of microscopic heroes are working tirelessly right now, this very second, to keep your inner city entirely toxin-free. So the only real question left to ask as we wrap up this explainer is, how well are you helping them out by staying hydrated today? Go grab a glass of water, give your kidneys a helping hand, and thank you so much for joining me as we explored the incredible excretory system.